Chapter 8. Spanish Disguise. Fortunately, Nancy was not unconscious. She admitted to feeling woozy, but declared she would be all right in a little while. Carla said she would run ahead and have the pilot wait. "Tell him I'll be there in a few minutes," Nancy called. She managed a wan smile. "We wouldn't want to be left here." George, having made sure that Nancy was not badly hurt, had dashed down a slight slope to the beach. Hoping to spot the person who had thrown the rock, she looked up and down. No one was in sight. "Maybe he's hiding," George said to herself. "I'll hide too, and if he thinks we've all gone, he may come out." She grinned. "I'll use a little judo on him." George slipped behind a big Arajanas tree at the edge of the beach and waited. No one appeared, but presently she heard a motor being revved up. She stepped from hiding to see who was in the approaching boat. Two men were pulling out of a small cove in a motorboat. Their backs were turned to George, but she instantly guessed that one of them was Manuel Sanchez. He had red hair and wore a black and white checked sports jacket. "I'll bet I did pick up a clue after all," George thought, as she climbed up the slope to rejoin her friends. Carla had returned, and she and Bess were just helping Nancy to her feet. "Did you find out anything?" Carla asked George. "I think so." When she told about the man with the red hair and black and white sports jacket, the others agreed that he probably was Sanchez. Bess expressed her worries. "Nancy, that man is determined to injure you. Oh, why don't the police catch him?" "I'm sure they will," Nancy said quietly. The girls walked slowly to the launch, where the pilot and Mr. and Mrs. Horace expressed concern over Nancy's accident. "I'm glad it was no worse," the woman added. The girls said nothing about whom they suspected of having thrown the rock, but they would certainly tell the police. The pilot made a stop at Victoria Island again, where, he said, his passengers could spend an hour or two. The girls immediately went up to the hotel and engaged a room. They had tea served, and Carla got in touch with the police. As soon as Nancy had finished her tea, the others insisted that she crawl into bed. "And go to sleep," Bess ordered. Nancy was only too glad to do this, and within seconds was sound asleep. The others tiptoed out and waited on the first floor until 10 minutes before sailing time. Then they awakened her. "That was just what I needed," Nancy declared. "I've completely recovered." When they returned to the Hotel Lau Lau, Nancy sought out Senor Diaz and asked if there had been any report on Manuel Sanchez or the caddy responsible for the runaway incident. "I have heard nothing," he replied. "I am sorry." As it neared dinner time, Nancy said to the other girls, "I must confess, I don't feel like going to the dining room. If you'll all excuse me, I'll have supper in my room and get to bed early." George grinned. "That's the most sensible thing I've heard you say in a long time. You do just that." "Carla can dress in George's in my room," Bess said. Carla gathered up some clothes and they said goodnight to Nancy. The three girls dressed and went downstairs to dinner. On the way to their assigned table, they passed a long one filled with men. Mr. Ponce was among them, and as an officer of the company was seated at the head. "Are you all having a good time?" he asked the girls. "And where's Nancy?" The trio hesitated to tell him what had happened. Finally, George spoke up. "Nancy doesn't give up easily, but she confessed to being very tired." Carla added, "She's going to have dinner in her room and go to bed early." "That is probably a good idea. Well, have fun on the rest of your stay here, and I shall see you tomorrow for our trip back." The girls went on to their table. Here they learned from the waiter that the first course would be smorgasbord. When Carla saw all the food on display, she exclaimed over the quantity. "If I take even one little tidbit of each of these delicious things, I will never eat any more dinner." The girls began to help themselves. Carla and George did not fill their plates, but Bess took 3 kinds of fish, chicken salad, vegetable salad, and half a melon. The others teased her, but she ignored them. When Bess was served a large dish of cream soup, roast beef, potatoes, and vegetable, as well as dessert, a rich cake topped with ice cream, she began to falter. "Oh, I know I'm going to burst," she said, after swallowing the last mouthful of dessert. George looked at her cousin disapprovingly. "If you have a tummy ache tonight, enjoy it by yourself." Bess was silent. After dinner, the girls wandered into the lounge and sat down to talk. Carla was quiet for a while. Then she said, "I have been trying to think of some way I could help Nancy solve the mystery, and I have just had what you call a brainstorm. Tell me if you think I'm crazy to try it." Carla outlined a plan she had in mind. In one of the gift shops, she would buy a large Spanish shawl and a fan. "I have a dress with me that is like a Spanish dancer's," she whispered. "I could fix myself up to look like an entertainer, and in that costume, I could try to locate Manuel Sanchez." "How?" Bess and George asked. "In the basement of this hotel," Carla explained, "there is a very large casino where various games are played. It is not run by the hotel and is open to anyone who wants to come and play." "Yes?" Bess prompted, as Carla paused. "It is possible that Manuel Sanchez will come there. If I can play my part right, so he does not recognize me, I might be able to talk with him and learn something worthwhile." "And turn him over to the police, I hope," George declared. "Of course." Bess remarked that the scheme sounded very risky, but George was inclined to think that it might work. "We'd better keep an eye on you, though. Bess can take the first watch, and I'll take the second." Carla agreed to this protection and went off to purchase a shawl and a fan. The other 2 girls went up to their room. When Carla arrived with her purchases, Bess said, "I hope Nancy's asleep, so you can tiptoe in and bring your bag across the hall to our room without her hearing you." Carla was able to accomplish this quietly. "I think it would be best if I change my clothes in the first floor powder room," Carla told Bess and George. "Then no one will recognize me as the same girl who went in. I will put this Spanish dress in a shopping bag with these other things. Bess, when you come down to follow me, do not speak. Pretend you never saw me before." "All right. How much time do you want?" Carla said 10 minutes would do. Bess waited exactly 10 minutes, then walked down the stairs. She stopped to look in various shop windows along the corridor. Presently, Carla emerged from the powder room, and Bess could not help gasping in amazement. "What a transformation!" she thought. The Peruvian girl looked utterly bewitching. Her hair was piled high on her head, and a tall Spanish comb at the back completed the coiffure. Over it all was a beautiful black lace shawl, which hung in a point down the back, almost to the bottom of Carla's gay Spanish dress. The other 2 ends of the shawl were shorter and lay gracefully on her shoulders. Carla's eyebrows had been heavily darkened. She had attached long, curling black lashes, which gave her a flirtatious look. The Spanish dancer seemed about 10 years older and very sophisticated. "Uh-oh," Bess thought. "I'd really better keep an eye on Carla, or this Spanish beauty will be kidnapped by some dashing cavalier." Carla walked up the hall, a black beaded purse held nonchalantly in one hand. Reaching the door which led to the casino, she opened it and started down the stairway. Bess had turned and followed at what she considered an unobtrusive distance. At the foot of the stairs, the girls showed free admission passes, which Carla had obtained earlier from the desk, after revealing her plan to Señor Diaz. The brightly lighted casino was filled with men and women, most of them at the gaming tables, others just milling around. Everyone stopped to look at Carla, and she received many invitations to come and play the games. To each one she replied, "Thank you, no. I am looking for Señor Manuel Sanchez. Have you seen him?" Person after person said no, but finally a dark-haired man, who extended the same invitation and received the same reply, said, "Olé! Sanchez did not tell me he had a date with such a gorgeous girl." Bess was surprised that the man had replied in English. He went on, "My friend Sanchez could not come tonight. He hurt his arm this afternoon." Bess's heart began to pound. Manuel Sanchez had probably injured himself when he had thrown the rock at Nancy. The dark-haired stranger said to Carla, "If you wish, I will take you to Sanchez and his sister." Bess was suspicious of the man. On the other hand, he might not be involved in Sanchez's crooked schemes. In any case, she hoped Carla would not accept. To her dismay, the Peruvian girl said she would be happy to go along. "Where is Señor Sanchez?" Carla asked. "You will soon find out," the dark-haired man replied. "Come with me." He led Carla out a side door of the casino and headed through the hotel grounds for the shore. Bess was extremely worried. She followed along the path as closely as she dared, wishing George were with her. The stranger led the way directly to the dock, where a motorboat rocked gently on the water. He took hold of Carla's arm to help her into it, but at this point she refused to go. He held on. "Get in that boat," the dark-haired man said firmly. "You are no friend of Sanchez, but I am going to find out who you are." As Carla struggled to free herself, Bess screamed loudly and ran forward. End of chapter 8.